Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's Partner Web Conference, U.S. Azure Partner Community Call for October. Today's session is being recorded on behalf of the Microsoft Corporation. If you do not consent to being part of the recorded session, please disconnect your line at this time. Attendees may access the web conference recording via a link that will be delivered within 72 hours post-conference. To learn more about the ways you can participate in today's event, please click on the Messages button in the lower left-hand corner of your screen. And we encourage you to use the Messages panel at any time to ask questions regarding content or to request support. To do so, please click on the Messages button at the bottom of your screen, type your questions into the white text box, and click Send. Your question will appear under Comment Pending until someone responds. Your feedback is important. At the end of the session, a survey URL will appear on the left side of your screen. Simply click on the survey URL, enter your email, and select appropriate responses. Thank you for your support. If you experience any technical difficulties during today's web conference, please press F5 to refresh your console or download the video troubleshooting PDF by clicking on the download button on the bottom left of your console. And if you're still having issues, please ask us, send a message, and I'll be happy to help you resolve the issue. Thank you for your patience. One moment, please, while I start the recording. Welcome to today's web conference, U.S. Azure Partner Community Call for October. I'd like to turn it over to your first presenter, Frank Campisi, National PTS for Microsoft. Frank, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Kim. Good morning or good afternoon to all of you. I really appreciate you joining us for the October edition of our Azure Community Call. If you're new to this call, welcome. If you're one of our returning folks, thank you for coming back to us and continuing the journey with us. For those of you that don't hear the familiar voice that you're used to hearing, our normal host, Nick Johnson, is traveling today, so I have the pleasure of hosting you all on this call today. We really do have a great call set up again for you today. The first part of our call is going to be kind of our normal rhythm to kind of go over some of the announcements that are happening in the Azure community since we last talked, and we'll cover that as part of the Azure Community Roundup section. And let me move to that slide. We will then move on to our primary topic for the day, and that is around ExpressRoute. ExpressRoute is one of the top requests that we get from partners, and partners are always looking for more information and really eager to learn as much as they can about it. So stay tuned here, and we have two great speakers for you today, Kevin Lopez and Ron Abalera, lined up to cover that topic for you today. And then finally on the agenda, we'll after they're done talking, we'll cover up kind of what we're going to talk about next month. So if you're new to our community, just a reminder on a couple ways that you really can engage with us. First, we have this community call that we run on a monthly basis. This is the call that you're on right now. And each month we cover a different set of Azure-related topics. We also have a couple of other channels, if you will. We have a regular newsletter that goes out every month. This newsletter covers the latest Azure announcements and Azure-related readiness and news. We have a Yammer group, which is over 1,600 members strong today, and it is, again, it's another great resource to plug in on a regular basis to see what's going on in the community, kind of outside of those normal monthly calls or newsletters. And finally, our team runs a blog, and we have regular blog posts, and our blog posts generally follow the same theme as our monthly call. So yet again, another resource to kind of plug into and get additional information that you may be looking for. We also have, just to make sure that everybody's aware for this call, the slide presentation for this call is available. And if you look at down at kind of the bottom of your screen, I think it's the lower left portion of your screen, you'll see a downloads button. That's where you can, get the PowerPoint for this session. And if you happen to miss that, or if you want to go back in the future and get the information, we will be posting both the PowerPoint slides and the actual recordings of this session on the Yammer group that I just talked about. So what's been going on with Azure since we last talked? Well, this past month has been kind of a busy month in regards to Azure. But then again, in this cloud-paced, kind of world, every month is really a busy month for Azure. However, one of the places that we're really going to focus in as we talk through this community roundup is around AzureCon. So I'm not sure if folks are familiar, but the AzureCon conference, it's a virtual conference that we ran. We ran it at the end of this September. And it was really packed full of new announcements. We had tens of thousands of folks following online. And what we wanted to do is kind of go over some of those key things today. And I know I'm not going to do it justice in this small segment that we're doing to cover it. So I kind of broke it up into 3 sections that we're going to talk about really quickly. So the first section, we'll kind of talk about the key announcements that were made at AzureCon. We have another section that will talk about a lot of the services that GA'd at or around AzureCon. And then finally give you some resources to kind of show where you can go to kind of immerse yourself or learn more information. So let's jump into the announcements. And again, I'm not going to go over each one of these announcements, but I did want to kind of talk through a few of the highlights. So from an app dev and DevOps perspective, we just announced the Azure Container Service. Many of you may be familiar with the early integration work that we did with Docker and some of the announcements that we made in Ignite in May around kind of container support for Azure or Windows Server. With AzureCon, we expanded on our Docker commitment here, and we're leveraging the Apache Mesos project to deliver kind of a customer-proven orchestration solution for applications, really being delivered as a Docker container. This Azure Container Service allows you to easily, easily create and manage Docker-enabled Mesos clusters. And this container service is something that we're planning on previewing by the end of this calendar year. We also announced the preview of the Azure IoT Hub. This is a fully managed service that it enables reliable and secure bidirectional communications between millions of IoT devices and basically an application backend. So think of it as being able to allow for device to cloud and cloud to device hyperscale messaging. We have secure communications on a per device level, and really have a ton of a number of device libraries for both the popular languages and platforms that are out there from an IoT hub perspective. Let's move on to the Azure Security Center. So again, yet another new service that we just announced, and really this service provides visibility and control of all things related to security and Azure resources. It really is the first cloud platform to provide a unified security management along with capabilities to help you prevent, detect, and respond to threats. So if this is something that you haven't looked at as a partner, it's definitely something that I would recommend digging a little deeper into, because there may be opportunities to offer services around the Azure Security Center. We also introduced a new series of virtual machines, the N series. So when you think of the N series, think of it as we've added the ability to have a ton of graphical processing capabilities by adding a dedicated GPU support to these machines. So the N series basically allows you to run some workloads that you may not have been able to run in the past in the cloud, anything that's really kind of graphically intense. Other quick notes along the announcement section: the Azure IoT Suite and Cortana Analytics Suite are now available for purchase. The SQL Data Warehouse is now in public preview, and we just recently made some great integration with Power BI. We'll also kind of move on as part of AzureCon. A lot of our services went GA. So the app services environment went GA. So for those of you that are not familiar with app service was a huge request by our corporate customers that allows a customer to provide a fully isolated and dedicated environment for running their application. So think web apps, logic apps, mobile apps, and such on that. We GA'd the Azure Mobile Engagement. Again, something that allows you to it kind of provides user segmentation, app user analytics, and contextually aware smart notifications. A number of ExpressRoute announcements were announced. I'm not going to really talk about that now. We have our primary speakers on to kind of go over ExpressRoute, and I'm sure they will cover some of those announcements. We introduced a new D-Series generation. So this new D-Series runs about 35% faster than our original D-Series. We've also had a number of price reductions on the A-Series. So we continue to kind of bring our prices down. And from an A-Series price reduction, I think some of the A-Series have been reduced as much as 60% from our original pricing. And finally, along kind of that GA spot, we GA'd Azure File Storage as well as Azure Backup. So hopefully, I know I went through that really quickly, and your head may be spinning. No worries if you didn't get everything that I kind of covered quickly, because we do have a number of great resources where you can kind of plug in and dig deeper into these sections. So along that right-hand side of your screen, under AzureCon resources, I just wanted to call out a few things. So first, we have two great blog posts that were written, one by Scott Guthrie and one by Jason Zander, that really do go over a lot of the topics that I just covered, and they actually go into them in a lot more detail. So at the bottom of that resources section, you'll see those links. Second, if you really want to get at all these sessions, all of these sessions have been recorded by Microsoft. So there's really two ways to get at those sessions. That first link, keynotes and sessions, will take you to the Channel 9 page where you can kind of get at all the videos. We also have that second link, which is the Azure Partner Readiness Catalog. What we've done is we've taken all of those AzureCon sessions, put them into the Azure Partner Readiness Catalog, and through the Azure Partner Readiness Catalog, you can kind of do deeper searches through additional metadata tags. So really the ability to kind of find the specific session or topic that you're looking for. And then finally, I wanted to pass along a link to a PowerShell script that one of our counterparts in Microsoft Canada put out on his blog. And what he did is he created a script that allows you to download all of the AzureCon sessions automatically. So you just run this script, it'll download all the AzureCon sessions. So if you're like a lot of us at Microsoft that spend time on airplanes, this may be kind of a great way to catch up on some of the AzureCon sessions. And with that said, that was the very quick roundup of the community and what's going on with the AzureCon. Again, if you want to get more details, I definitely recommend going and reading those blogs. And with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin Lopez, who's going to be our primary talk speaker on the ExpressRoute.
Thanks, Frank. Hi, everyone. My name is Kevin Lopez. I will be have a co-presenter with me today. So we're both on the global black belt team. I'm the PSE, the partner sales exec for Azure ExpressRoute for the Americas. And I also have joining me Ron Abalera, who's also a global black belt, and he's the smart one out of the two of us. So he's the technical smart guy that knows all the stuff here. So what we're going to cover for you today and how we're approaching this is kind of jumping off of what Frank just talked about. A lot of our announcements, a lot of the things that happen around the 29th around Azure ExpressRoute in particular. And so the first part of it, of the presentation, is really just going to cover some of the exciting things that we see in Azure All Up. And then we're going to go through the ExpressRoute stuff and what some of those announcements were, what the changes really mean to the customers and to the field, to you as partners, and then also to kind of deep dive and talk about where we see it really fitting in partner-wise and some of the strategies that you all as partners can begin to undertake and enable. We're going to do Q&A as well, so feel free to ask the questions. And then at the very end is where I'll kind of dig in a little deeper with some of the links and explain sort of what's going on, because there were some big announcements, but there were also some big things done on our Azure.com backend. That's really exciting stuff to go through. So, and again, we're going to be kind of breezing through some of these to get to some more actionable Q&A. So I believe you all as Azure partners understand a lot of these things. You understand where we're pushing with cloud, how we're going to market with it, how we're going and we're doing hybrid and jumping into the different spaces, what our goals are when we talk to C-levels, and kind of getting people to move. We see, as the statement above, I think best summarizes that it's not an if, it's a when. And people are moving in that direction to get to cloud, and we believe that Azure, as a platform, really is the enablement to get people to do what they need, to get to, and we'll talk about that a little bit. And I'm just going to build this one all the way out. So starting from the bottom, quick point as we talk about what our infrastructure looks like. So, the data centers that we have around the globe, the investment that Microsoft is making all up in that infrastructure and putting together these data centers, and then enabling many of those. I think we're up to 18 right now for Azure ExpressRoute. And we'll talk about ExpressRoute and kind of get into what that does. But at the customer level, what we're looking at is how these services, these IaaS services and these PaaS services, have really come to fruition and are continuing to grow. So when you look at these stacks and customers start to look at, where do they fit in, what workloads do they need to do, how do they want to go in hybrid mode, or what compute items do they want to do, and kind of identifying those key workloads. Those are the beginning blocks that we see to successful ExpressRoute deployments. So overall, in an overarching stand, really, we feel that Azure ExpressRoute is the enabler to help customers dig deeper on these types of services. Ron, I wanted to get Ron's take on this one too from a field perspective.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. And this just showcases like the growth of our cloud platform. I've been with Azure for 4 years now, and seeing the platform grow, and it just gives our customers so many different options. Whether they're in IT or from the business line, whether you're a developer, etc. So it's grown tremendously. And Kevin will show a list of all the different ones that we just announced in the last 12 months soon, but it's just a massive platform, and it gives you that hybrid credibility, where Microsoft can support your on-premise and all these different resources in the cloud, and that's why it's extremely important to have that secure connectivity in between. And note that not just from an infrastructure and platform, service, we're in the magic quadrant for many of those different areas. So Microsoft is being, in that top, thought leadership position when it comes to cloud in various aspects of it. So it's really important, as we talk about ExpressRoute today, that it is an enabler of these workloads that you see here.
Thanks, Ron. And again, just to show the massive investment. I believe at AzureCon we announced 3 additional data centers as well in India that's coming forth. As Ron mentioned, these are the 500 plus releases in the last 12 months. So as you see that scrolling across the screen, when you think about sort of traditionally how Microsoft operated to the change that we put forth today, you see at the size and scale that we're positioning and that we're really going to market. It's a very exciting time. And as we see all these things, it takes some ramp time, it takes some development, and it takes a lot of good input and feedback from customers, partners, from the field to better understand sort of where a lot of these things fit. And specifically, as we mentioned, sort of where we get to ExpressRoute. So what does it do? How does it go? So when you look at the top of this slide, just think of it saying, what is ExpressRoute? So I like this one in particular because it's one of the newer models and how we've done it. It's particularly talking about 365, but as we look at it, you could think about and plug in all of our clouds, the different cloud services into here. So think about Azure. Think about, we just announced GovCloud as well. We just announced Office 365. We're going to have I'll talk a little bit about CRM coming soon, but when people talk to us and they try to, they ask, hey, so what is ExpressRoute? So the stuff on the left-hand side there, getting the customer's traffic off of the open internet, providing that premium, that dedicated circuit, providing networking to the various workloads. So when you look at it, it's one pipe. So it's called Azure ExpressRoute for, and then you can insert the different workloads. So Office 365, for GovCloud, for CRM Online, for these different things. So it all gets done, and we'll talk about prereqs and everything in a minute, but it all gets done on the Azure console, on the Azure side. Predictable performance with these circuits. So to talk about it, again, at sort of a higher level to make sure that we're level setting with the folks that this may be new to, there's two different people involved with the customer. So the customer, basically how the transaction works is the customer identifies a Microsoft connectivity partner. So think of your traditional carrier type or exchange provider type partner. So AT&T, Level 3, Equinix, Verizon were some of our kind of key launch partners in the States. And think of when a customer has a network with one of those folks, they can then have the connectivity points. So they pay the connectivity partner. They choose how big their circuit is with them, what they want to do, if they want to do layer 2, layer 3, and then they go to the Microsoft side and they pick the appropriate speed that they want to go with. All of our pricing and everything is listed out on the Azure.com site. They pick the location and they get connectivity. So they're going to be paying Microsoft. They're going to be paying the partner, and it's going to be based off of their speed. It's going to be based off of whether they want unlimited ingress egress or whether they want to do metered, and based off their speed. So there's always 2 points in the deal, and that's one of the key things to understand there. The customer component to this is really how we've broken it down, and we'll talk a little bit about pricing in a bit, but it's really just meant to give them a flat space to look at, to get their connectivity in line, and then to figure out what they want to do. Now, one of the key things that's identified in this slide is that it says for Office 365, and on this one, what we're showing is really the different cloud connectivity, that happens in there. So, what happens with their VMs, with the 365 services, with Azure, and as you think about the various Microsoft cloud services, you could just increase the different clouds, but all going through that one pipe on the left side. So it's that one Azure, pipe, the connectivity that it's going through. So there's sizing metrics that customers need to do. They need to look at their network. They need to best understand what workload they're going to be doing. If it's Azure, understanding what performance that they're looking for, what the workload is, how big is it, what's it going to push ingress egress, is it storage, is it ASR, kind of what's going on. For 365, it's those same things, right? So it's planning the network, looking at what they're using the TechNet planning tools that are up there. We have a link at the end of this as well. And planning their network out. So making sure that they know, again, what ingress egress, what type of speed they're looking for, that they understand the routing, so that they understand the NAT, the QoS, all the things that are out there. And I'll show you where all that stuff are, talk to where they can find all that, because we've made it on the Microsoft side very accessible for customers and partners. So this is not like a hidden thing. The key thing that we like to identify is that ExpressRoute is not the final destination. ExpressRoute is an enabler for these workloads. So when you get a customer that says, I want to do ExpressRoute, if they don't have a workload identified, that should be a flag that maybe you want to spend a little bit of time helping them to identify that. Because what we've seen thus far in the year plus that we've been working with this is that customers that have the workload identified and that have their plan identified and consumption-wise of what they want to do are far better and move along faster in the process. They get it, they're with it, they kind of move on. The ones that are like, hey, I want to do it because it's the new thing and I want to set up a POC and I want to do that, it's going to take a little bit longer cycles in there. And it's going to be kind of hard to prove out, because if they're just doing ExpressRoute and then they're not sure what workload they're going to push up there, it's hard to identify success metrics in there, right? So you could theoretically go into latency and timing and some things of that nature, but it all kind of depends on again, what workload you're doing and where you're doing it at. One of the key things to understand as well is what we call geopolitical regions. So a couple differentiators between what we do and what our competition does. When you look at what Microsoft does, a customer buys an ExpressRoute circuit. On our back end, so Microsoft, with our connectivity partners, we insist on 2 connectivity points. So 2 VCs, 2 virtual connections that the partner delivers to us. That gives us the availability to provide an SLA, which is a 99.9% uptime SLA, which our competition doesn't do. It gives the customer, dual ports coming into us, coming into the Microsoft side, but it also gives the customer choice in how they want to structure that on their side of it. So if they don't want to pay the connectivity partner for 2 distinct circuits, they could do 1 circuit coming in and split it off into 2 logical with us. So we've seen connectivity partners do that. If they want to do diverse route, if they want to do HA, high availability and different things, we'll support that, but it's the customer's choice, right? So when you look at, and sometimes what we've heard from our people that say, well, hey, I'm getting a quote from one of your competitors and it's half the price. Well, a couple things to consider with that. Number 1, they're only doing single circuit. Number 2, there's no SLA. And number 3, they are, if we're talking straight AWS, they're only going into that 1 site. With Azure ExpressRoute, when you connect into any location in the United States, you get access to the other ExpressRoute locations around the United States. So if you connect into Chicago and you have some other stuff that you're doing, say, out of Ashburn, you automatically get connectivity to Ashburn through that Chicago connection using the Microsoft backbone. So some very key differentiators in how things look and how they play when you're talking to your customers and you're trying to understand that. So these were the high-level announcements that we made on September 29th and talk about the new billing model. So we flattened our model out. It used to be where we had 2 different types and the customer had to know what their connectivity partner was doing in order to find the right price on our side and kind of match it up that way. And we've done away with that. So we flattened the pricing model out and we made it, in many cases, 40% cheaper than what it used to be. And so now a customer has 2 choices when it comes to the Microsoft side. They choose either unlimited or metered, and they choose the speed. How they get to us is determined with their connectivity partner. So it's layer 2 or layer 3, and there's partners. So when you think about layer 2 and layer 3 at a high level, think of layer 3 as the AT&Ts, the Verizons, the NSP models, and think of layer 2 as more of like the Equinix, those exchange provider models. What we're starting to see is that some of these partners are developing solutions on both sides. So they may approach a customer and say, hey, we could do both. Level 3 is one of those that can do layer 2 or layer 3. And customer A, you don't have to worry about any equipment, whichever way you go. We're seeing Equinix develop solutions where they're partnering with other partners to provide layer 3 connectivity out to their customers, and the ones that are already on site in Equinix, and they already have a really solid layer 2 solution. So those are the customer works with the connectivity partner, chooses layer 2 or layer 3, however they work out their connectivity. Then they come to the Microsoft side and they go to our new billing model, figure out what they want to do there. Second announcement was Office 365. So Azure ExpressRoute for Office 365 is now available in GA. So those were the launch partners that we went with. As of yesterday, AT&T was just turned on and is now available. And then we also announced ExpressRoute for GovCloud, and those are the partners that we're supporting there. And then the Azure Resource Management. Ron, did you want to talk about that one at all?
Sure. As far as the resource management, please be aware that when you go to Azure.com, there's two portals. There's the what we call the classic version, which was traditionally accessed from the Windows Azure.com. But through the new portal, if you go through portal.azure.com, many of those resources are what we call the Azure Resource Management, or ARM. It's a new API essentially for allowing different containerized workloads and being able to distribute role-based access for only specific workloads. So those are new types of services that you can create on Azure. It does require an ExpressRoute circuit, an ARM-based ExpressRoute circuit to be able to reach those type of resources. So just be aware that depending on the workloads that you are wanting to connect to the cloud, that there may be some special provisioning that you need to do for those. So just feel free to ping us for details, and there's a lot of good guidance that's also on the Azure.com website for that.
Thanks, Rod. So these are, just slides showing, again, a little more logo-based stuff about who the launch partners were. This is some case studies that were on there. The one that isn't on here that I'll talk about and that you could also find up on the Azure.com site is the Microsoft case study. So Microsoft IT deployed ExpressRoute for our internal use. And there's a guy by the name of John Orman who did a best practice document. So John just joined the product team, the networking product team, which handles ExpressRoute. And John did a best practice document, which is up on the Azure.com site, and I think in the resources section. And then even contained within there is a technical white paper that you can get to as well that has some reference architecture information. So there's some really good resources up there, and the Microsoft side, the best practices that John did, he had to face it from a customer side. So he had to go through everything. He had to figure out, the pain points and the ways he can kind of, what he needed to do, and then kind of put it together for some best practice stuff out there for customers and partners. So really good information. These are some of the references that we have to date, and just kind of what they did. Some HarperCollins and Accelera and NetApp, and kind of what they're doing with their customers and enablement out there. And so you'll see ExpressRoute enables lots of different things. So it's not just a customer-facing thing. It can also be sort of a partner add-on and a partner play as well, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. So this is the details, and if you look up, starting up at the top of the slide, they have to have an Azure subscription. So customer, even if they're only going to use it for Office 365, they still have to have an Azure subscription. And part of the reason, big reason, is because they're going in through that Azure portal, and how this is meant to go is that customer orders their network component, figures out their layer 2, layer 3 connectivity. They get okay from the partner, like, hey, you're ready to go. Customer goes into the Azure portal, runs some PowerShell script. That script is actually out and available on the Azure.com site in the documentation section under networking and ExpressRoute. And they run through that. They get the service key. They give that to the partner, and away you go. So it's enabled. So in that service key, and when they're doing the PowerShell scripts, they're going to choose the partner. They're going to choose the speed. They're going to set, their BGP. They're going to do lots of different things in there to kind of get things running. And so that's where the Azure ExpressRoute or Azure subscription comes into play. Ron, anything you want to talk through on, customer good to know types of things as they go through that?
Yeah, absolutely. So when customers plug in Office 365, some of the things that Kevin mentioned already as far as a lot of the planning, this slide is really important for the workloads for the planning. As far as some of our customers have the top priority workloads such as Exchange, SharePoint Online, Skype for Business, etc. In the future, what we also have right there. Sometimes so we also talk about, some customers can pick and choose which ones that they want to still continue using the internet. Here's a list of the ones that are not actually enabled for ExpressRoute today for a variety of reasons, just the way that the architecture is, and it just doesn't make sense leveraging the circuit for that. But if there are any specific questions on some of these workloads and some of the best practices on enabling that, just let us know.
Thanks, Rob. So again, just kind of this is just showing the differences now. So we had a different model before. These are the connectivity positions now, and the unlimited and the metered pricing plans down at the bottom. So as you look at it, again, the goal from our teams were to kind of flatten it out, make it easier for customers to choose, and just have what fits them and what works best in their environment. This slide goes into some of the detail around that billing. So if you start at the top left, that's the old model and the old speeds that used to be, and so you see they were kind of disconnected in some cases, and they varied. And so going to the right side of that top side is how we flattened that out, added some additional speeds, and made it unlimited versus metered, and for a customer to kind of pick whatever works for them, and not have to go through that. Well, is it an EXP or an NSP, and what do they offer? And well, that's not the speed I want, and so on. So we've kind of flattened that whole thing out there. So we're going to spend a few minutes here. This is what I mentioned at the onset, and this is not only just some reference links and things, but this is also where we guide partners and customers. So one of the big things, and it didn't get its own announcement, but what happened on the 29th as well is, and it's still going through it, is that our product team rewrote the entire site when it comes to ExpressRoute. So they had a decent set of documentation that people can go to and kind of find their way around. And what they went and did is built it out even more. So they give you all the general stuff, the overview of what it is, the pricing, the locations, so on, links to partner pages, which we're cleaning up and making sure that they're actionable. And then they go deeper into the how-to, into the so the technical documentation that you see up there, the ExpressRoute for Office 365, prereqs. So when a customer is interested in it, one of the first steps that we recommend that they do is look at those prereqs and go through the planning stuff. So best understand, what they look like today, what their bandwidth usage is, and go through like all those before they start to kind of progress. Continuing on down that path is the how-to stuff. So how do you enable a circuit? How do you modify a circuit, an ExpressRoute circuit? What's the NAT? What's the QoS? All the different requirements. Then they go into best practices, reference architectures, all those sorts of things. And if you see down at the bottom, there's even some resources around, network security and virtual networks and security groups and user-defined routing. So all those different things, these are all kind of common questions that we get, and so that we're real clear. I want to talk a little bit about sort of the partner ecosystem that we have in place right now. So currently we have what's called connectivity partners. So again, these are folks that have bandwidth and resell bandwidth, and they have fiber, or they have dark fiber, cable in the ground, all that sort of stuff. And so we have those folks, and we work with them on different levels. So the big giants are our connectivity partners that we have relationships with. Everybody that we meet from a partner level is at a Meet Me location. So It just kind of varies as far as like how much attention that our teams can give, and that's based off of what a connectivity partner can come in and do. So if a connectivity partner comes in and they enable 5 ExpressRoute circuits on their own, then they get a logo, and then if they do 25 or plus double digits into there, then they get more. There's no real set number, but it's sort of just a progression. So we meet in the United States right now, Equinix, and we have another site coming on board very soon that we'll have, and we'll meet partners there. And then as far as like our SIs go, we're developing. We're in the very, very early stages of looking at how to engage SIs. I'm specifically not going to use the word program because that infers that there's some sort of a certification or a give-get or different things. What we're looking at right now is sort of how do we engage with SIs, and which of them have kind of stepped up, gone through all the documentation, know what they're doing, enabled some customers, and can really talk through it and can identify the customers that they've named, and then are willing to sort of give some free time, if you will, to customers to say, hey, we'll help you walk through the PowerShell commands, or we'll answer some questions, or we'll help. So those are more scale things that we're looking at in greater detail. And as I mentioned, there's no kind of set program yet. We're in the infancy and kind of developing some of those things. We're working on different levels to look at scale and volume coming up. So we understand that there's a lot of interest, and we want to get folks out some stuff. So we'll continue to update. And now that we have Frank, and we'll make sure that we kind of get the information to Frank to communicate out, to the partner ecosystem as these things progress. Big step to do is really to use these links, get out, learn what it is, learn all the details behind it, and start to talk to your customers about it.
And one thing I'd like to add too is that for your customers that really want to have that conversation and ask their specific questions, Kevin and I also host what we call the ExpressRoute Fridays. It's an every 2-week session where we share the latest and greatest updates on ExpressRoute, and also open up the floor for Q&A for customers. So if you have any customers, or if you yourself would like to join, feel free, and we'll send you an invite for that. But we call it the ExpressRoute Fridays.
Yeah, it's every other Friday. So not this week, but next week, right, Ron?
Correct.
Yeah. So thank you. Really appreciate it, and I'll turn the floor back over to Frank, and we're here to answer some questions.
Hey, thanks, Kevin and Ron. There's a number of questions in here. I'll do my best to try to get to as many as we can for you guys. So let me just shoot through some of the questions I see. One of them is, can I set up an ExpressRoute on one of my MSDN subscriptions in a test environment?
You can. Yeah, I can answer that. So there's no real limit. Just be aware that ExpressRoute circuits, if you look at the price, depending on your MSDN account, if you have it capped, then you will run out of that capacity pretty quickly, and you still have to consider the cost of paying the provider as well. So just remember, there's 2 costs: a Microsoft cost and the provider cost.
And another key point on that is, when you're talking to your customers, you want to make sure that before they go in and set up ExpressRoute, that their network is ready. So as soon as they enable that circuit, the billing starts. So if they go in and they're antsy to get at it, and they enable the circuit, and then they talk to their carrier, and the carrier says, hey, we found an issue and you got a 60-day build out, that's going to be 60 days worth of ExpressRoute billing that they're going to get hit with. So you always want to make sure that the network's ready first before they enable that circuit.
Okay, another question along the pricing side. Is the new ExpressRoute pricing being reflected in the Azure pricing calculator?
That's a great question. It's not there just yet. It's being worked on and being escalated because there were some issues with it, so it's on its way.
That's for the external one, so be aware that for specific customer accounts that our field teams do have, a spreadsheet just for that customer with their discounts. Those
Yes.
calculators are updated, but that is on a per customer basis.
Right. Thanks, Ryan.
Does the Office 365 and Azure share the same ExpressRoute?
Yes.
Yeah, the same quote-unquote circuit, but they're different BGP sessions. So they're routed via layer 3 separately, but it is the same circuit. So you're paying for one circuit.
Okay. So another question. The SLA is on availability. What about performance SLAs to the Azure DC or other DCs on the MS backbone?
Yeah, we provide the uptime SLA, and then the customer will also be able to choose the size of the pipe. So those are the ones that you have. But as far as performance, a lot of that varies as far as the distance from your data center. And you also have to remember that there is also a provider network in the mix as well. And that's the reason why there isn't a performance guarantee, because there's a lot of variables on that highway, so to speak. So that's the reason why we can give you the best guidance, and there's a lot of testing that you can do as a customer to show what type of performance you can get. But a lot of that is around the planning and making sure that you have the right provider and the right locations picked out.
Okay. Another question. Many people are using Cisco equipment that has a lot of features and protocols, and Azure uses custom routing. How does this work? How will this work? So, good question about custom routing and Cisco.
Yeah, great question. So we support, from an equipment perspective, what goes into the ExpressRoute circuit is layer 3. So the provider that you choose may have some specific requirements as far as what that handoff looks like, and that may govern what equipment that you need to plug into them. But for the most part, your standard, your Cisco devices, Junipers, all the major players all do layer 2 and layer 3. So there's really not a equipment specific requirement for ExpressRoute. It's just more from a protocol perspective.
Okay, next question. What is the process for transitioning from VPN to ExpressRoute? Most of my clients will use VPN while they work through the process of establishing their ExpressRoute.
Yeah, fantastic question. The good news is that your VMs, your virtual networks, you don't have to touch them at all. What ends up happening is that the gateways change. So currently today, if a VPN customer is connected, they have a site-to-site gateway. All you really need to do is just light up that circuit and change it from a site-to-site gateway to an ExpressRoute gateway. And now your existing resources in that virtual network will now connect via ExpressRoute.
Okay, another question here. Can ExpressRoute Azure costs be consumed through the monetary commitment?
Yes. So that's where the costs are consumed through. So when the billing happens, when the customer signs up for it, so theoretically, this could happen without much Microsoft interaction. So there's no from a customer standpoint, they could go in, if they talk to the provider says network's ready, they could go in and provision this and do it, and it starts billing their monetary commitment.
Yeah, that's a great question, and we get that all the time. So yeah, from the Microsoft side, there's no, as long as you already have Azure and you're already consuming it, there's no contracts to sign, and it's just billed from that commitment that you already have. So from the Microsoft side, it's super easy. But be aware from the partner side, if you may have to sign additional agreements, just that pricing aspect may have some additional time needed to sign all the agreements, etc. So just be aware that that's where, as far as deployment times, that's usually what takes the longest.
Okay, we'll do a couple more questions here. I know we have a lot of questions in the queue, so what we'll probably do is try to get these questions answered through Yammer, the ones we don't get answered here. So let me just do a couple more. I think we have a few more minutes. We'll do a couple more and then kind of move everything to Yammer. So the next question, for the MPLS connection that comes into the Microsoft environment, is that connection firewalled and require firewall rules on the MS side to access the servers, or does it connect right into the LAN?
Great question again. So that all depends on the customer. We have a lot of customers that will have firewalls on their side. Our providers as well, our partners, can also serve a firewall service in the middle. On the Azure side, you can deploy firewalls in your environment as well. So it really is up to the customer on where they want to deploy the firewalls.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just looking through here to. Metered versus unmetered ExpressRoute is a massive difference in price. Any idea what percentage of customers are actually buying unmetered?
Since it was just released a few weeks ago, we really can't tell. It's kind of dependent.
Yeah, just on that note, just to be clear, so the way that it works is that all inbound, so basically from a customer's network to the cloud, whether it's Azure, Office 365, that's all unlimited. It's only when it goes back the other direction, that's where the meter is counting. So as far as a customer trying to choose between a metered or unlimited, most of the ones that are going to choose the unlimited are for your heavy Office 365 users and customers. If they're downloading a lot of data, or if they're doing a lot of Skype video and that sort of type of workloads. Azure, typically there's not much coming down. There's usually ingress, so it sort of depends on the workload, but that's one way for you to be able to determine whether it's a metered or unlimited plan that you choose.
Okay, we have a question here that. Oh, do you have something else to add? So we do have a question here that says it looks like during the presentation, the ExpressRoute was talking a lot about exchange provider. Is network service provider still available for data centers?
Yeah, so that the NSP EXP is taken away. We don't use those acronyms anymore. It's layer 2 or layer 3 on the connectivity partner side. So there are both. There are exchange providers and there's traditional network service providers, but we don't refer to that anymore. It's pick your connectivity partner and choose layer 2 or layer 3, whatever they offer connectivity with them.
So I'm going to ask the one last question here, and then, like I said, the rest of them we'll put, we'll get them to Kevin and Ron and try to answer some of them through Yammer. So the last question: how does a partner become part of the ExpressRoute ecosystem?
So as I mentioned, there's the connectivity partner side. So if there's connectivity partners, we guide them currently today to Equinix to join the Equinix Cloud Exchange. And what we call just becoming a connectivity partner in that sense, and then there's ways that we'll work through a questionnaire and see once they start onboarding customers to have additional discussions. The other part that SIs can do is to work relationships with the existing connectivity partners today to better understand and present their offers to their customers. So they're all the connectivity partners in most cases don't have an SI practice model, so it's sort of new to them. So developing relationships with those folks can really help to do that, and then becoming sort of a customer advocate to sell to your customers, to the SI customers, to get them deployed using whichever partners that they feel. And you don't have to have a direct relationship. You kind of be a jack of all trades and just start to do that. So we'll have more around an SI program probably at the beginning of 2016 calendar year. But right now, that's how the ecosystem is sort of working out.
Thanks, Kevin and Ron. So the only thing else I wanted to cover is next month we'll be talking about advanced threat analytics. And with that said, I want to be respectful of everybody's time, so I'm going to turn it back over to Kim to end out the call.
Great. Thank you, Frank. Your feedback is important. We hope that you found today's information helpful. Please take a few minutes to let us know by completing a short survey. Please click on the messages button to find a link to the survey. And you can access the web conference recording via a link that will be delivered 72 hours post-conference. And I'd like to extend a big thank you to our presenters, Frank, Kevin, and Ron. This concludes today's web conference. You may now disconnect.